Hi everyone, I'm Richard Purvis. I'm from Crunch Simply Digital. Thank you very much for the introduction. I am your penultimate warm-up act before the main event. Who's on after me?
Melanie and then RB.
That's the big one. But I'm going to warm you guys up a little bit, okay? And I'm going to talk, well, first I'll tell you who Crunch are. If you've been over to the stand, had a chat, or if you haven't, make sure you get over there and pick your prize, because we'll be drawing that at the end. Yeah, so do that. But Crunch, very simply, are a media buying company, strategic planning and media buying, okay? And we specialize and focus on digital and techniques called programmatic, if you've heard of that. But what I'm going to talk about today, which is linked to that, but not directly talking about what we do, is talent demand generation. This is I guess it's a buzzword, right, with these come out, but we started to notice this word being used 6-7 months ago, sort of to the end of last year. And although we'd been applying these principles of talent demand, we looked at that phrase and thought, actually, that really describes well what we're trying to achieve for our clients. So our job is to work with our clients, the partner agencies we work with, or directly with recruiters, to help them create a demand for their jobs and demand for your company, okay? It's a principle based on how products act. You know, so when products are launched, they have to go and create a demand for a product. You know, two best examples of that I like to, who work in different ways, is Apple are very good at creating demand for their products. They create demand for the iPhone, and they do that in innovative ways. And when you get companies like Samsung, who kind of work on the principles of on the coattails of that demand and build businesses. But when we're talking about in the recruitment sense, we're not necessarily talking about creating a demand immediately, although it is entirely possible. We're talking about creating demand for what your business stands for, putting information out there about who you are, what your values are, the employer brand that everyone's spoken about, and making those talent communities that you want to come to you aware of what you mean. We've done speeches before, some of you may have been here last year, when we spoke about the passive market and the active market. And we've always spoken about, you know, our techniques for pushing your stories out there are about activating the passive market. But talent demand generation is better than that, it's bigger than that. It doesn't actually matter whether or not you're doing it for creating a buzz in the passive or you're recruiting in the active, because it stands over all of that. You know, when we put our job postings out on Reed, you know, the candidates there, your job is there, they have a choice. That's the whole point of the job boards, they have a choice. So it's quite hard in media arenas like Google and Indeed and Reed and the rest of the job boards to bring out all those great things that we've been speaking about today to create a demand for your company. So we have to do that outside. So when they look through the list, when their thumbs are scrolling through the lists of opportunities they have, your brand, your company name jumps out of them as a company they already know. So I'm going to do this presentation to really explain how to do that, okay? Firstly, can I have a quick show of hands for everyone who hates audience interaction? Okay, that's good. Right, now, can I have a show of hands for those who have written any social content for recruitment? Yes. Yeah, don't be scared, I'm not actually going to interact, I promise, I'm just a show of hands. You know, if you've been asked to say, right, well, you know, we've written our job postings, now can you go out on social and do it, then I'm going to show you what one of the most terrifying, horrific sites, as it says up there, for you in recruitment marketing is, and it is for me as well. Yes, the flashing cursor of doom, the what do I write, the blank sheet. I know it terrifies me, and you know, and I'm guilty of it as well. You know, we want to push our messages out there, and we sit down and we think, right, what do I say? How do I say it? And I think if we're starting with just at that point, we're starting in the wrong place. Where we really want to start is from a base of interesting information to say. And if we just sit down and say, well, we want to hire tech people, we're not getting the response, the volumes we need from the job boards, we need to reach out to the tech websites and into those communities and give messages out there, we're most likely to end up producing content which is a bit meh. And if any of you guys don't know what that means, it's mediocre. It's what the kids say on the internet, isn't it? And what happens when we just write content for the sake of it and we put it out there, and I do all this, and I do this quite a bit, much known to Louise. I write something, I haven't really thought about what my story is, what my audience is, what they want to hear. I just write about me and what I've just thought, as terrifying as that is. What we end up with no likes. I won't ask you to kind of give me an idea of how many of you have experienced this, but I usually put a piece of content out there on Facebook and I get a sympathetic like from the wife and some other people and something like that, but it doesn't go any further than that. So the best piece of content I put out in the past couple of weeks was a robot dog falling over. That was it. And I'd written loads of really interesting GDPR stuff, and no one had liked it. I can't believe it. So there you go. But what the challenge is when we get out there and we want to create demand, like the marketing team do for the products, and we want to create demand for people wanting to work with us, is that it's a marketing problem. Okay, it's not a recruitment solution. It's not a recruitment problem or a piece of copy or our job descriptions aren't right. It's just we're not thinking in the realms of how marketing would think, and we've got to do that. I did promise Louis, he put this slide together to pronounce this, but does anyone know this place? Llanfair, does anyone want to give it a go? Any Welsh people? Want to give it? Did you point at a Welsh person? Did you? Yeah. Well, this interestingly, this place is in Wales. Is in 1840. They renamed it Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll. Forget about it. As a marketing stunt, okay? The point is that we do know how to market, we just don't apply it at the right time. And we've got stories to say. Everyone today has been talking about employer branding. That's what marketing is. It's not about I got a job. You don't go, if you're at a networking event and you meet someone and you say you're hiring a developer or something and you meet them, oh Christ, they really know I should really talk to those guys. You don't go, hi Richard, hi, I've got a job, it's 35,000 and it's they'll just think you're insane. You do different things. You walk up to them, you have a chat, you start talking about what you do, what your company does. They say, oh, that's quite interesting. You have a conversation with them. You give them a business card. You say, why don't you connect with me with LinkedIn? You post something else. You drop them a message. And you might say, oh, hi, I met you at networking. Do you happen to know any good developers? And they go, me, actually. You go, wow, that's brilliant. Let's hire you. That's what you would do in a recruitment situation one-on-one, but we don't do that when we go out to market and do it. We literally blurt out that we've got these jobs on offer and hope that people will react to it. The problem is born, and it's not just a recruitment problem. E-commerce do this, and they battle it all the time. It's the idea from naught to bought. We've got the beautiful opportunity the internet gives us of connecting with almost anyone in the world instantly. And what we do with that is that we rush to it. We think, let's push that message out as quickly as possible. Let's tell them we've got a job. And we consider everyone is standing at a queue. Everyone is standing waiting to apply, and we put our messages out to react to that. But if we take learnings over from the e-commerce world, we all know that there is always a journey. Just because the internet can make that journey much shorter than it used to be, advert out on a Thursday, applications in on a Monday, go through them in a couple of weeks. Just because we can be instant doesn't mean we have to jump over all the steps we should be taking. So in e-commerce, from marketing theory, we know that you always go through these stages. First of all, you need to be aware that the company or product exists. You need to build a familiarity if you're going to spend the money on it and do your research. You start getting interested and then you start considering it. And then finally, you'll buy it. Well, we do the same with job purchasing, if you know what I mean. We go through this whole phase. First of all, we need to become aware that we want a job, and we need to be aware of a company. We're not going to apply to companies that we're not aware or familiar with, and we'll probably know them through their products and that, and you might need to consider whether or not that your product or your service you offer is the right stage for this. It might be, sometimes it is, but that's why we talk about employer brand, because sometimes it isn't. And each one of these 5 stages is an opportunity to control that conversation with media. And that's what we help people do. We build our campaigns in a way that you can make people aware, connect with them, make them familiar, take them through the consideration phase and application. Those of you who've filled out our form over there, that's our connect phase. We've connected with you. Okay? Sorry to blow the bubble if it's not a sales thing, but it secretly is. But we're doing this, and this is what you need to do. When we build media plans, we need to consider them. First of all, we need to put messaging out there, which is a connect. But we don't expect that connection to end in an application. We then go the consideration phase and the conversion phase. And these are different stages of marketing messages. And on the internet, they don't all have to happen at the same time. They can happen in different ways. But we don't think about these all necessarily in just digital terms. It's not all digital. We need to take away the idea of being able to run different media channels and just because it's there, and look at it as a whole. I really like an example of what I'm talking about, making connections or thinking differently, is what VW did. VW had a little bit of a crisis of confidence in terms of recruitment with their technicians, and their fabulous agency, this goes over there, thought about things in a completely different way, because it wasn't going to work when technicians, and there was the emission crisis, technicians were leaving, and it wasn't going to work putting just messages out there about jobs and that, because they had a bit of a PR problem going on. And also technicians, engine vehicle technicians, aren't people who search for jobs. In fact, when we've seen some research, they're not even people who apply for jobs. I think I saw statistics that most of the applications for vehicle technicians were done by their partners. It's mainly a male industry, so it's actually their wives doing it. So what do you do in that situation where you're a brand who you're never going to be searched for in a certain situation, and people aren't going to come across those jobs because it's not natural? Well, you change the story. You talk about what it is that they're doing, what their job role is going to be, what it's in for them, and it being relevant. This to us is just an engine, okay? And it doesn't really mean anything. We come across this, doesn't mean anything to us. But to a vehicle technician, and I promised I wouldn't use the word, I did before, Dan decided is pornography, in a way. It's engine porn, there you go. But it's perfection. But it has an emotional connection, okay? And it's emotion that we're trying to do, because I go back to, this is a marketing thing. And marketing is driven by creating emotion, not just giving information, and that's what it needs to do. This sounds all quite complex, and yes, it's complex. It's why we exist. It's why we have 20 people working on these systems. The systems themselves are quite dull to go through. I won't do that, but I will bring it a little bit to life to kind of give you an idea of how this all pieces together. So we've got 5 different stages, or 3 different stages: connecting, considering, converting. We need to put different messages out. You can't just blurt these out on YouTube and just leave them to chance that they'll see it on YouTube, and then you've got another bit of information about a day in the life, and they'll happenstance across it on Facebook. You need to control that journey, and technology gives us that ability to do. So, let's imagine we take a cold audience of software developers that we know is roughly within that, but we're not quite sure that they have the skill set, say Ruby on Rails, or some kind of development language that we want to pull out of that audience. They're not searching. Good developers never need to search for a job, okay? So they're there. We send a campaign out, which is a bit like the VW one, that's interested in engaging and perfection. They connect with us. By connecting with anyone online, you produce data. We kind of know that, okay? It's got a bit of a bad rep at the moment, data, okay? But let's ignore that elephant in the room. Come talk to me about it. But we connect with people. We build an audience from that information. And that might be done with a video. What we do is we then expect them to come to the site. We can see people in mass coming to the site. They'll engage with certain content. We'll know what content they're engaging with. And we can continue the story as much as we want until we feel it's right to then convert them into a job application. This might happen on YouTube. This will happen on our website. We might then see them again on social. Finally, they'll do a job search. They might, and most likely, will end up somewhere like Reed, and they will make their final decision based on that. But there's been a journey all the way down. They become applicants. And what's great about the modern technology we have online is that we can take that positive information and we can push it back in and start perfecting and running the campaign and looking at the creative. Was that creative quite right? Did people watch our video to the end? What happens to the people who dropped out the video in 30 seconds? What stopped them there? Should we give them another information? And you can go on and on. But I thought I'd just end the slide on data, on presentation on data, because I really like this, and it might ring true to some of you. We have a long journey, and attribution is a catchphrase in digital marketing about understanding which part of our marketing funnel has actually had the most amount of effect, what really affected it. And we see this, I like this. This guy, he gets a catalogue, sees some shoes in the catalogue, walks past a piece of out of home, goes online, sees an MPU for the same shoes, is listening, here's an advert on the radio for the shoes appear again on television. He finally decides to buy them, picks up his mobile phone, buys them there. The marketing team are sitting around, they're watching this happen, and they say, turn everything else off. We sell everything through the mobile phone. Now you can replace that mobile phone by the word indeed, okay? So everything that goes before it, if you're only looking at your data from the last thing that happens, you're probably missing the whole story and applying your budgets in an appropriate way. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.